I've been working on a Metroidvania called Dewdrop Dynasty for the last 3 years now. And what began as a small 30-minute prototype back in 2020 has become one of the hardest, longest, and most rewarding projects I've ever worked on. And though it's had a lot of highs and lows, I've completely fallen in love with working on this game. And I'm excited to share with you what I've been up to for the last 6 months. Now, for those who are new here or didn't see me spam about it on social media, I launched a Kickstarter and a demo for Dewdrop Dynasty back in October of 2021. At first, the Kickstarter seemed to be going well, but within the first couple of days, pledges completely flatlined. And only after several stressful weeks, incredible support from the community, and a generous pledge of $6,000 by CeeLo, we were funded with an hour to spare. Yeah, I was a little nervous. So after the Kickstarter, I had a lot of conflicting feelings. On one hand, I was so relieved that Dewdrop got funded and I could continue working on it, but I also was painfully aware that the game needed a lot of work. And after taking a desperately needed break, I jumped back into Dewdrop with a fresh perspective. I started out by creating a game design document using Milanote just so I can break down the game into tasks for me to work through. Things like, how many abilities should there be? Where should you get them? How many areas and bosses are there? And most importantly, a timeline of when everything needs to be done. Even though I continue to change this document to this day, it was really nice to have a clear plan of what to work on. Next, I knew it was time for me to address one of the major complaints I saw a lot during the Steam Next Fest and Kickstarter. And that was that people thought the game was lacking a strong gameplay hook, like a strong selling point that made Dewdrop stand out from other Metroidvanias. The only example I can think of is the sparing mechanic in Undertale. I feel like that's a pretty good game hook. So I decided to reach out to my best friend Bonzo to brainstorm some ways to make Dewdrop stand out more. Not only is he a fantastic character designer and has created a bunch of designs for Dewdrop, but he's also got a really good eye for game design, and that's really important to have, especially if you're working by yourself or in a small team. Plus, 2 heads is better than 1, unless you're fighting a Hydra? Yeah, that was a bad joke. So we sat down and started thinking. Like, we thought everything from like monster taming, randomizing the world, changing dimensions, to like dating sims, elemental weapons, or even befriending NPCs to fight for you. But the 2 that really stuck out to us were dungeons and partner-based ammo called Ammolings. For the dungeons, we imagined having self-contained puzzles, enemy gauntlets, and new abilities that could break up the gameplay, basically like a Zelda game, but side-scroller instead. Sorry, Zelda 2. And for the Ammolings, we really like the idea of your partner being a part of your weapon. The Ammolings are like what power your gun, and they also explain why you have infinite ammo. It's like taking Goombario from Paper Mario and shooting him out of a gun. I mean, that's pretty sweet, right? But hey, that's just me. Let me know what you guys think about the Ammolings in the dungeons, and if those really would make the game stand out or not. There's plenty more I want to say about them, but I'll save that for a future devlog. So after all the organizing and brainstorming, I started to prototype new weapons and abilities, like this melee-based grapple hook weapon called the Frog Shot. Yuck. I also felt like it was time to start working on some baddie boy boss villains. I can't believe I just said that. Making games can be extremely expensive, especially for an indie dev. And that's why I wanted to give a big shout out to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video. In an era where you can use Twitter on your refrigerator and do your taxes completely online, security is a high priority for me. And that's why using a VPN like Surfshark is important. It encrypts your online data and keeps you safe, even if you're browsing around on sketchy public fast food Wi-Fi. And that also includes downloading any sensitive information. A VPN keeps your location and download history private, and thank God, because otherwise I would have a lot of explaining to do. One feature I really like is it has a built-in kill switch that saves your data from accidental exposure. So if your VPN goes down, it will kill the internet. That way you're not exposing all your data for the world to see. And of course, if a show or an anime is only available in another country, like let's say Japan, all you have to do is pick a different server and you can stream Doraemon to your heart's content. And if you enter the promo code Goodgis today, you'll get 83% off plus 3 extra months for free. And once again, thank you Surfshark for supporting Dewdrop and the channel. I'm a big fan of Mega Man robot bosses or Organization 13 in Kingdom Hearts. I know those have nothing in common, but what they do have in common is they're just a cool group of bad guys working together. And knowing that I have some secret lore planned for these bosses, I decided to draw some circles and send them off to Bonzo, which he turned into pages and pages of sketches. From my favorites of these, I created the final pixel art, but I say final very loosely as things are always subject to change. I'm not quite finished with all the pixel art for the bosses, but I feel like these turned out pretty sweet. Okay, so now on to the fun stuff. Some of you might know that the game engine I'm using is Godot 3, but at this point it was announced that Godot 4 was officially releasing, and with that came major bug fixes, performance, and quality of life changes, one of them being that tiles no longer have this weird gap issue between them. So awesome. Now, even though there will always be bugs in Dewdrop Dynasty, migrating the project to Godot 4 would fix a lot, but I knew that doing it would also break a lot, and if I was going to do it, now was the time before I built out the rest of the game. So I dedicated about a week to migrate everything over, and not only that, but I also took time to clean up and optimize the game, because after working on the project for years, it's easy for your project to look like an absolute dumpster fire. And with Dewdrop successfully being migrated over to Godot 4, I began making several major gameplay improvements. One of these was pointed out by several of you, and that was zooming the camera out a bit. You see, the game always felt a little cramped or like you couldn't see where you were going. Specifically this room in the demo, you had to blindly drop down only to find spikes and a horribly placed rattler that would snipe you out of the sky. Yeah, that was not great on my part. Now I did update the demo so you can hold down to see what's below, but I also felt that zooming out the camera was necessary. I mean, not only just so it's easier to see, but also it allowed for more room for detail with pixel art and such. Lastly, this is how dedicated I was this. I even compared how big Poe is on screen versus other games like Hollow Knight or Iconoclast, because I just wanted to see how big were they, and I wanted to match them, and I did. After doing this, I decided it was time to give the movement and gravity a refresh. Remember me saying like 2 seconds ago that the game felt cramped? Well, part of the reason is because Poe's jump height was really pathetic without using your gun. That meant I had to keep the platforms pretty close together, which resulted in the player bonking their head constantly. And add to the fact that every time you hit your head, this thud sound would play, it really didn't help. So I remade the platforming based on this lovely GDC talk called Math for Game Programmers Building a Better Jump. And after following that, the jump feels like you have way more control over it. First off, your gravity is heavier as you're going down, so it's a little bit more snappier, kind of like a Super Mario Bros. Game. And this really allows for more precision-based platforming and less bonkage. So I don't think that's a word. This also unknowingly fixed another problem I had, and that had to do with the gun jumping. Turns out the whole gun jumping mechanic was a lot harder than I thought for people, and many people were frustrated or were unable to finish the demo because of it. That's when I realized the gun jumping mechanic needed to be more like an optional mechanic like pogo jumping in Hollow Knight, and with the improved jumping mechanic, it totally fixed that. Because you can jump higher now, you can reach most of the areas that required a gun jump, so you don't have to do it. But if you do learn, it makes the game way more enjoyable, and you feel like you're just flying around. I love it. I love it. Now, I haven't even begun to talk about the level design process, blocking out the world, overhauling the dialogue, and the mini-map system, or heck, even the graphics update. But I think all that will have to wait until next devlog. I still have a lot of work to do before Dewdrop releases in 2024, but I'm working as hard as I possibly can. And if you'd like to support me on my game dev journey, then consider wishlisting Dewdrop on Steam. It's completely free and it helps me out tremendously. With all that said, let me know what you're most looking forward with Dewdrop, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.